If there is a war on ignorance, conspiracy theories represent one of the enemy's major divisions, and Ralph Rene is one of its top generals. As one might expect from such a leader, he has demonstrated his blustering incompetence in a diversity of subjects. Here he challenges the basics of fluid mechanics. Since the time of Archimedes, a real genius, we have understood that a floating object will displace its mass of water, but Rene claims to have found fault with that principle of physics by showing how an object which nearly fits the water's container can float without displacing its mass of water. His argument is as follows. Suppose we have a cylinder with 50 grams of water. Then we place a cylindrical object weighing 80 grams of a diameter just slightly less than the inside of the cylinder. Since this object is less dense than the water, it should float. When it is released into the water level rises significantly around it. The arrow indicates the depth to which the object would sink, whether in a container or not. It is true that the object did not move 80 grams of water out of the way as it sank, since there were only 50 grams of water to begin with. Rene's problem is with the interpretation of the terms. The volume of water equal to the submerged portion of the object here would weigh 80 grams. No laws have been broken, no new paradigms set, no scientific status quo overthrown. It's just a matter of definitions. Even though displacement sounds very much like the amount of water moved out of the way, that would only be the case where the water level would not rise significantly, as in a much larger container. Displacement really means the amount of water equal to the submerged volume of the object. The amount of water in this cylinder still weighs 50 grams. But when the object was placed into it, the level of the water more than doubled. This now allows the water to encompass a volume of the object which would weigh 80 grams if replaced with water. Rene also disputes the value of pi. Now, this is a value that has been refined for the last 2,300 years and is known to an incredible number of decimal places. However, Rene's idea of pi differs from the universally accepted value by nearly 0.5%. This incredible difference would make many industrial applications virtually impossible. It would certainly be impossible for us to send spacecraft to other planets as we have done, unless he doesn't believe any of those probes exist either. Rene is a virtual gold mine of ridiculous claims regarding the Apollo program. He is credited with the sea rock theory. He believes this rock was labeled C by a prop man and mistakenly placed with the letter showing. The original shows no C, so it was probably a small piece of lint that got on the negative during some later copying process. Anyway, this must have been one very busy prop man. Didn't Rene ever figure that if this was staged, there would be absolutely no reason to label rocks? He claims that NASA's findings have vindicated Immanuel Velikovsky. Of the numerous grievous errors and absurd claims made by Velikovsky, he said that the atmosphere of Venus would be hydrocarbons and carbohydrates. Wrong. It turned out that the atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide. Velikovsky, in his perpetual ignorance and arrogance, claimed that they were really the same thing and that NASA had proved him right. They are not the same thing, and NASA proved him wrong. Velikovsky's claim wasn't even original. He stole that prediction from a real scientist named Rupert Wilt, who had abandoned it. Velikovsky presented the prediction as if it was his own and did not credit Wilt. It's no surprise that Rene is a Velikovsky follower. Here are some other claims. The Earth does not have an equatorial bulge. dinosaurs and humans coexisted. Rene says he did an experiment which proves Coulomb's law is wrong. The Earth rotates on magnetic bearings, which Ralph Rene humbly calls Rene bearings. The force which governs the movements of the planets is electromagnetism. Perpetual motion machines are possible. The Van Allen radiation belts are impossible to travel through without killing astronauts. This is not true. Van Allen said so himself. An astronaut in a spacecraft with a 3mm aluminum hull would have to remain in the radiation belts for 2 to 3 months to absorb a lethal dose of radiation. Apollo astronauts were in the most dangerous zones for only a few hours. Rene goes on. Rock cliffs more than 1,000 feet high are impossible, according to Rene's calculations using the universal law of gravitation. Rene says the underlying rock would be crushed and the cliffs would collapse, thus proving Newton's law wrong again. What it really proves is that Rene's calculations are wrong. Rene also claims that ice ages are impossible. Rene claims that earthquakes where the seafloor spreads and sinks can't cause tsunamis. He also claims that scientists have verified this. And finally, Rene believes the United States government was behind the 9/11 attacks and has also written about that. This has to be the most outrageous, idiotic, and offensive conspiracy theory in this country's history. Those who promote it are traitors, and Rene, of course, is prominent among them. These people should bring their official charges to the Justice Department or shut up. Until then, they should be considered enemies of the United States government and its citizens. Thanks to Ralph Rene and a couple of others of equally dubious credibility, in their tireless crusade against truth and common sense, thousands if not millions of people today are convinced we never went to the moon. I believe many of them just like to see how many people's eyebrows they can raise around the water cooler, and enjoy perceiving themselves as detectives who have spotted hundreds of alleged mistakes when thousands of rocket scientists, physicists, and engineers all over the world for the last 50 years somehow missed. It is not the need for truth that drives these people. It is colossal ignorance, laziness, arrogance, and conceit. In most cases, I believe they do it because they feel more important if they can trash the United States government, call heroes liars, call scholars gasbags, and deny the greatest achievement of the 20th century and perhaps all of history. Their pretentiousness is an egregious affront to the memory, service, and sacrifice of those stalwarts of our species who lost their lives in the pursuit of knowledge, and is a profound insult to the many thousands of talented and dedicated people in the NASA program who these uniquely uneducated and self-aggrandizing hoax theorists can't hold a candle to. Nobody but his closest relatives should even know that Ralph Rene ever existed, and he certainly doesn't deserve anyone's respect or admiration. He and those ill-motivated, ill-informed legions who hold high the colors of ignorance and envy deserve our heartfelt contempt.